Okay. So if you're wanting to review any of that material, it looks like we didn't start recording until just now, but there's a consciousness class I offered for Land of Medicine Buddha, and that's it's like a 5-part series, but just the first one is probably similar to what we talked about today, and that's on my YouTube channel. So if you wanted to review any of that. And let's see, there's also I guess some just good reading if anybody is curious. So let me just see here. I think I have them nicely organized somewhere. Here they are. Okay. So any follow-up reading about consciousness, I really recommend these 3 texts. Any of them, all of them. Mind and Its Functions by Geshe Rabten is kind of hard to find, but I think lots of Dharma libraries have it. It's really beautiful. But the other 2 are quite easy to find, and you can get them electronically. So The Foundation of Buddhist Practice by His Holiness and Venerable Thupten Chodron, who a lot of you know, is got really solid info on consciousness. And then a little bit more technical, but really accessible language and really clearly laid out is this Science and Philosophy in the Indian Buddhist Classics series. Volume 2 is on the mind. So that's more arranged by Geshe Thupten Jinpa, and also under the support of His Holiness. So those 3 are really excellent follow-up on mind. Okay. All right, so any questions before we do our meditation?
And one, how far down the food chain or plant life chain does sentient go?
Yes, it's a good question. Normally we say if it has volition or will or intention, anything with consciousness is sentient, and we think that all animals are sentient, all insects are sentient. Plants may or may not be, but definitely house sentient beings. Bacteria may or may not be. In terms of life that is, I guess, observable, anything that kind of moves under its own volition probably has sentience from a Buddhist perspective. Yeah. Which isn't to say that it's like not under the influence of the brain that it has. It's like all consciousness has the aspect of clarity and awareness. All consciousness has innate ignorance unless it's developed. All consciousness also has Buddha potential, so the potential to develop into the awakened mind. But it has to use the brain that it's operating within. So our consciousness uses our human brain, so we have more verbal abilities, more study abilities, more practice abilities, so it's a really good rebirth. But animals are kind of limited by their animal brain. Even though their consciousness has that Buddha potential, it's harder for it to develop because animals can't study, right? Yeah, but it's not to say they can't develop habits of loving kindness and compassion, especially like parental animals and mammals in particular. Yeah, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so all life is precious from a Buddhist perspective, but and we want to maintain good karmic connections with all living beings, so we want to have a respect for all life. But in terms of the most conducive life for practice, we say human life is the most conducive. If you were in one of these godlike realms, which are a little bit similar to how we are used to understanding like the Greek gods, not conducive for practice because too much pleasure, too distracting. Yeah, and the animal realms and the hell realms and the ghost realms and all of these, not conducive for practice because too much suffering. But human beings are in the sweet spot of enough suffering and enough happiness, right? So you have enough suffering to be curious about the causes of suffering and want to end the causes of suffering, but not so much that you don't have the resources or tools or support to be able to do anything. And you've got enough happiness as well. So yeah. Yeah, any other questions? Good. Okay, so we'll do a meditation looking at the impermanence of the mind. So in order to do that, we're just going to move in stages through the meditation. These stages a lot of you are familiar with. So we'll start with just a grounding, connecting with the physical experience, and then we'll shift to the breath very briefly to let surface distractions settle. We'll revive our motivation, and then we'll do the body of the meditation and dedicate. So if you want to first get yourself having the straightest back you can without that straightness of back turning into something rigid. So if you need to shift around in your chair or kind of adjust how far forward or backwards you're sitting on the edge of the seat so that it feels easy to sit up straight, not like you're tensing. Just kind of play with your own balancing. And imagine your spine is like a column of coins, nice and straight. And then just very gently tucking your chin in. And if it helps you to stay awake, you can have your eyes just slightly open, gazing unfocused at the floor, or all the way closed if that's too distracting. You can have your hands on your knees, or you can have them in the traditional way of the left on the bottom, the right on top, the two thumbs touching in your lap, or however is comfortable. And then just be with the body, being a compassionate witness to your own physical experience, allowing any tension to dissolve. And if it helps, you can take a few deep intentional breaths, imagining your nervous system settling. And gradually shift your focus to the breath without any particular agenda other than to watch the breath. Anything else that arises, just notice it and let it go. Imagine all your surface distractions settling. Whenever your attention strays, just gently bring it back to the breath on purpose, again and again, gently. And see if you can be relaxed about your own distractions, internal distractions or external distractions, just distractions. And come back to the breath. No big deal, no story. And then as the mind starts to settle, revive your positive motivation and think I'm doing this meditation on observing the impermanence of my mind in order to challenge the habit of grasping at permanence. And may all of this energy lead to the development of my fullest potential so that I can be of greatest benefit to all living beings. And if you identify as Buddhist, you can reconnect with refuge in bodhicitta in your own heart to yourself. But just repeat back your reasons for doing this meditation. Reinforce them to yourself, make them alive. And then with that motivation, begin to observe your own mental experience. So you're watching your own thoughts, emotions, your own observational, reflective aspects. Just be aware of awareness without trying to add anything to it. When there is movement and words, you notice that. When there is spaciousness and clarity, you notice that. Watch. And if it feels like you've fallen into your thoughts or gotten lost in thoughts, imagine that you gently pull back into observation, watching with a very quiet agenda to notice impermanence, changeability, the flux of your own thoughts and emotions, the different things that are reflected in the main mind. Watching thought, not lost in thought. Spacious, not spacey. And the changes you observe might be relatively subtle. Few moments of relaxation, few moments of tension, few moments of boredom, few moments of peace. And there's no need to agree or disagree with whatever you observe. Just notice the flux of it. Watch it change. And see if you can become less engaged with the movement of the mind and more engaged with another aspect of mind that is more reflective and still. More sky, less clouds, but not needing to manipulate the clouds. Just less interest in them. And then consciously shift your focus back to the body, reconnecting and regrounding in your physical experience. Aware of your weight on the chair or on the cushion. Present in your own form. And then mentally dedicate all the energy you put into this observation to remembering impermanence in order to relax into the flow of it, overcoming negative states of mind, and gradually developing to your fullest potential for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay, you can relax your attention. And so sometimes in that couple of moments after you've finished a meditation, it's good to do a post-meditation reflection, kind of what did you touch? What was hard? What was easy? What was interesting? And just kind of like reinforce to yourself what just happened. So you kind of hold more awareness of that knowing. And sometimes if the meditation felt like a struggle, you still sometimes feel relaxed afterwards. So if during the meditation there were moments of struggle, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So also knowing that. So do you have any questions or things to share about that? How was that meditation for you? Did you feel like you could connect? Yeah, please go ahead.
I've only been doing this now for 37 days, and I'm old. I'm 64, and this is incredible. I mean, so I knew how important breathing was, and how it affected performance, but never the way that it affected peace.
Yeah. It's like all children should be taught how to breathe, how to walk, how to eat. We just take it for granted that we know how to breathe, how to walk, how to eat. And we don't really. We just kind of do it in a mechanical way that gets the job done, but at the expense of a deeper level of peace. But I think it's reassuring how quickly it can connect. And also you brought your life wisdom to it. So it's not like you just started, it's that you've got a new tool to your pre-existing wisdom. So those two married up very quickly, and give yourself some credit, right? Right.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, other thoughts? Good news, bad news, ambivalent news.
I feel like it's like going to the gym. Like when I meditate, it's like, why don't I do this all the time? And then a lot of times you just skip it, and then just miss what the effects are. Mind it, it's like you forget every time. Like I do. But how substantial it can be.
Yeah, it's another way of grasping at permanence. I think it's so human, but yeah, if someone said, oh, I tried exercise once, it didn't work, you'd be like, well, you have to do it more than once. But if someone said to you, I tried meditation once and it didn't work, you'd be like, oh, okay, maybe it's not for you. But it's like, actually, no, you have to do it again and again. But even on that one day that you do it, there's benefit. And I think what's useful to realize is that, especially in the beginning, the first 5 minutes of like getting yourself to sit down, getting yourself to do the meditation, not fun. You don't want to. You're having all sorts of rebellion. And then once you actually do it, you enjoy it often, or even if you don't enjoy it, you feel much better afterwards. And it's really an uplifting experience. But if you kind of know that first, like even 3 minutes is going to be no fun whatsoever, but it's only 3 minutes, you can sort of like get yourself more in the mood, right? Yeah. Like when you get to the gym and I don't know, stretch or get yourself ready, you're like, I don't want to. And then you start and you're like, oh, I feel much better. Right. So that transition time is often a time of some resistance, not always, but it can often be. So that would be human if that's kind of how it goes in life. You want to meditate, but you also don't want to meditate. Right. Yeah.
Have a perennial obstacle for my meditation is a part of the mind wants to compare how this meditation session is going versus all the best meditation sessions I've ever remembered in my life, and just recognizing, oh, that little program is at work, and oh, I don't need that. Let it go. Just come back to the object of the meditation. Don't judge it. Just do it.
Yeah, it's really a very good point. We are different people every day, even if there's a continuity, and sometimes things come together and there's all sorts of amazing things. And then some days terrible things and some days neutral things and everything in between. And yeah, holding yourself up to the standard of one of the kind of big moments or worrying about one of the hard moments, it's futile because there's too much change to really predict. It's part of the process, but we do that as people. We're always looking for patterns and we're always looking for going back to the best. And, I think another piece of remembering impermanence is just having that kindness to yourself that doesn't make plans or expectations based on how you are at your best. Not just your best meditation, but like your best. You think of some day somewhere in the past where you were really well rested, really had been eating properly, felt physically well, your mind felt clear and your relationships were harmonious and you were just really beneficial and productive in whatever productive means to you. And you had one of those excellent days. And then you hold yourself up like that is who you are. And it was like, no, that was a really good day. That's great. But, if you're expecting to live up to that constantly, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And if you're holding yourself up to that standard of when everything came together, you can develop an identity around that, which pivots between arrogance and self-loathing, which seem completely opposite because they are, but they're two sides of the same coin of I identify as this perfected version of me, So I either need everyone to agree with it or no one to notice that it's not always there, you know, including myself, because then I'll get depressed, right? So it's like just having a gentleness with yourself that you at your worst are fine, right? You're fine at your worst. Like it's not ideal, but like it's also not completely under your control. Some parts are. Take the reins of those parts, but you know, we can't control the weather. We can't control everything about our body. We can't control everything about our environment, and just some sort of like gentleness, you know, and sense of humor. Sense of humor helps. Yeah, both in practice and in life. And then of course, life and practice become one. Yeah, go ahead.
It's like trying for excellence or something, or
Hmm.
like you repeat, you know, like, oh, that worked, so I want to do that, you know. It's your
Yeah.
mind trying to control.
Yeah. And recreate something. And it's hard to recreate anything because there's too many variables and too many conditions. It's a little bit too hit and miss, but we think we can, and then we get disappointed in ourselves or it, whatever it is.
Variety, yeah,
Yeah,
variety like pushes you that way all the time.
yeah, absolutely. And it's also helpful to have goals and to be moving towards something. I mean, we're moving towards Buddhahood, we're moving towards enlightenment. And also, you know, like how long it's going to take, who knows? Like enjoy the journey, you know, and to kind of feel like it's the sort of marathon where you want to enjoy the scenery and you want to pace yourself. And if you approach a marathon the way you would approach a sprint, you'll just blow your knees out and hurt yourself and get sad, you know. And it's like it's a marathon, and it might be that we're further along to the end of the marathon than we realized, but you might as well pace yourself and like make friends along the way, and you know, look at the sky sometimes and see how beautiful it is, all that kind of stuff. So that's the first of the 4 seals. And then Jordan's going to help you guys integrate it and go back over it and really use impermanence as much as you can in the next month. Really notice it, notice your relationship to it, those 2 things. Yeah, and if you meditate on it, excellent. But if that's kind of your like thought project homework, notice impermanence, notice your relationship to impermanence. Yeah, those 2 things. Okay, yeah, anything else before we call it a day and do our dedications?
I mean, so we have, there's that book that was recommended as a companion,
Yes.
like chapters or things that would be good for review.
Yeah, let me pull it up and we can have a look here. It's the teaching is Buddhism, one teacher, or many traditions. And of course, as I look in my library, there's so many books that start with the word Buddhism. There we go. Okay, I found it. 1 second. All right, we'll do share. So it is this book. And, you know, it's got a lot of good sections here, but I think that in terms of good things to look at, if you're kind of new to Buddhism, looking at the origin and spread of Buddhism is useful background, but it's not really the main thing. I think the thing to look at here might be the higher training and concentration. Yeah. And to just kind of like have a look there. And as much as you want to, but you know, this chapter 5, I think is going to be quite useful. And later, when we go into the higher training and wisdom, there's a lot of stuff there, but that's good stuff. And in terms of your motivation, there's kind of 2 I would recommend, either looking at the 4 immeasurables if you're not sure if you're Buddhist or not, because the 4 immeasurables are really universal and pretty much everybody agrees they're a good idea. Love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Or if you're already Buddhist or are thinking about being Buddhist, then look at bodhicitta. So one of those 2. Yeah. But basically, this book is just a good catch-all, really clear, concise way of understanding the main points in Buddhism. Yep. Thank you so much. So I'll see you probably next month, and then maybe in July we'll have Yangtze Rinpoche.